Hi, I'm Miriam O'Day. I'm Senior Vice President for Government Affairs for the American Association for Respiratory Care. And welcome to our podcast today, Expanding the Respiratory Therapy Workforce, Insights from the Task Force and the HRSA collaboration. We're going to do this as an interview style. I'm really happy to be joined here today by Jerin Juby and Jefferson Mixell, who are co-chairs of the task force, and they will give you a little bit more about their backgrounds when we turn it over to them. But we're going to briefly describe AARC's engagement with the Health Resources Services Administration, HRSA, and initiatives like the Workforce Diversity Act and the loan repayment programs aimed at strengthening entry into the respiratory therapy profession. So I'm going to start with you, Jerin. How was the task force formed and what are its primary goals?
Thank you, Miriam. A little bit of a quick background. My name is Jerin Juby. I work in Philadelphia, and I am part of the PSRC Board of Directors and a member of one of co-chairs of the task force that we are discussing today. So the development of the task force, it was formed as an offshoot of AARC's Education Summit back in 2024. The primary goals, as we originally identified for this task force, were to explore the HRSA RT loan forgiveness program and to pass legislation to recognize PSRT under the Medicare Part B. And then we had objectives from there that we have been working on for the past almost a year at this point.
Great. And what challenges is the task force addressing in recruiting and retaining respiratory therapists? And then if you could answer a second follow-on question from that, how the collaboration of educators, clinicians, and policy leaders are shaping the recommendations that you'll be making to the board of directors.
Absolutely. Thank you. I would like to start with the first one. Obviously, the challenges in addressing the recruitment and retention of respiratory therapists. I would like to put that into, let's say, two buckets, if you will. The challenges and the goal, or the goals and the objectives would fit into two buckets. One being the financial support through loan repayment programs, which is available for other professions, as we know. Specifically, we were exploring options for respiratory therapists to access funds through the Allied Health Workforce Diversity Act legislation, which was passed in 2022. The goal here is really to attract and retain individuals into respiratory therapy. And now, when I think about this aspect of looking into these two buckets and also the collaboration among educators, clinicians, and policy leaders, this committee and the task force had this sense of a high learning curve, if you will, because for the most part, we are not talking this on a regular day-to-day basis. And both myself and my co-chair here, Jefferson Mixell, and the committee members really worked hard on identifying and really understanding what does it mean, HRSA and the Allied Health Workforce Diversity Act. And also a big part of what we did was to learn and understand this. So going back into, what are we addressing here? A second bucket that I will talk about would fit into the advancing the profession bucket, which we all have as passionate respiratory therapists trying to do over decades of time at this point. So Medicare Part B recognizes a variety of health professions, but respiratory therapy is not recognized. And the legislation was originally introduced in 2009. We have been studying the background of this and is from different perspectives, different layers, and trying to work on possibly reintroducing that back to Congress, which would aid in advancement of the profession. And going from there to how have we collaborated among educators, clinicians, policy leaders in shaping these recommendations. A big part of the committee, as I mentioned just a moment ago, was identifying the background. So we have a few folks who are part of this committee, and we obviously realize there are experts all around the country that has worked in these spaces, in the space of policy, in the space of legislation, in the space of Medicare billing, in the space of the clinical management of things. And also we have reached out to experts from all of these different spaces in pulling together our comprehension of these two main goals that we were talking about. it almost felt like we are, maybe to an extent, we are at the very peripheral level of a deep sea, and we are trying to go down, or you're seeing the iceberg as at the top of the iceberg, and there's multiple layers behind it. So the system behind it, the complexity behind it. So we reached out to folks from all of these different backgrounds that we have identified as experts in the field, and have conversations with them, and have to really give a shout out to all the folks who met with us as we reached out to them and say, hey, you know what, this was something we're doing. What can we? Could you meet with us to talk about this? And not a single person said no. Everyone had found the time and also offered, what else can we do to help you? So that means the passion and the work, the passion for the work that all of them have been doing. So that's a bulk of how we have done what we have done over the past couple of months.
That's a great analogy of the iceberg, and just, trying to get underneath the iceberg and figure out what's under there and what more can be done to move the profession forward, right? To recruit and retain respiratory therapists. I can tell you that your task force meetings have been some of the most interesting meetings because of your guest speakers. So I commend you on bringing information to AARC and to AARC's volunteers and to your task force, Jerin. Nice job with that. If you could talk about what you think our affiliates and individual members can do to help the work of the task force. Are you in the process of getting ready to make a formal ask to them after you have had a review by your recommendations of the board? Or how do you think they can engage with what you're doing?
Absolutely. And I would like to start this part of the question with a personal note of, I have been a member of AARC as a student member since 2006, and as a professional member since 2008. And I would say I had literally no clue of any of this till I started getting involved in this committee, the work that's being done and the work that is that is needed to be done over the upcoming years. So all the members out there, AARC members, really, I would call it, I would put this as a call of action. Get involved. Getting involved in your state society. It doesn't need to be a committee that you're involved and you're running meetings once a month or twice a month, but getting involved in one event, like involved in your legislative day or capital day, is of high importance. So that's a piece that all members could participate in, support in doing. And it also works as a sense of influence. So as you see someone else getting involved, you get involved too. So that piece of leading by influence comes into play. So as members, there's a huge there's huge value in that. The other piece that I would say here is a call to, if any non-members are hearing this, there's a call to non-members too, that the value that we bring as members to AARC and as volunteers to the work that is being done through the task force and the board is extremely important. And I would call out to those who are part of the committee and those who are working in the board as spending the volunteer hours, spending the extra hour during your regular workday, and each bit really counts. So there's a call for action for our non-members to consider membership and also consider participating in these kind of committees, whatever your passion is, so that we can kind of move among the profession. And then the third aspect of this, certainly bringing in state societies. Our state societies have been doing a lot of work. We have seen significant changes over the past several years, especially the last year with the compact licensure passing that we have seen in Washington. And similar activities and work has been done all throughout the United States. As I understand, certainly Pennsylvania is doing it. So state societies being aware of these activities, being aware of the importance of bringing legislative action to the forefront, I think, is extremely important. So state societies being aware of it, making it one of the key areas. Like we talk about key performance indicators. Let's have this as a key performance indicator for the annual state society work that we do for each of our state societies. So I think those are three layers essentially, and it all comes together in helping advancing the profession and supporting our respiratory therapists and thereby supporting our patients as a whole.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jerin. It's a great testimonial about the importance of volunteerism and what it's meant to you and what it can mean to our members and our non-members, as you point out. Is it too soon to ask you about what kind of success the task force has had? And a follow-on question to that about what you hope to meet in terms of milestones for 2026. I can't believe we're almost at the end of 2025 already.
I think it was probably around this time last year that both Jefferson and I said yes to the committee, in co-chairing the committee, and we had no clue of what we are getting into. And Miriam, I would like to call you out here for all the support that you have provided. We appreciate you so much, the depth and the breadth of knowledge that you brought to us and the connection, so extremely valuable. We wouldn't have done this without you here. So
Thank you.
is it absolutely is it too soon to consider success or promising initiatives? At times we feel like, oh my gosh, what have we done? But we have done a lot. I think just gathering the information, gathering the background itself was certainly a heavy lift. And that awareness that we have now as the co-chairs and as the committee is of extreme value. So I certainly see that as a big success. In just a few minutes, we'll be talking about our work with HRSA and data success. So I'm not going to talk on that, but we have had connection with HRSA, and that will be coming along just a second. And we have identified several, as part of this process, ways to think through and identify loan prepayment programs, or even think through how to bring back the legislation for Medicare Part B back into the picture. And also all of that preliminary, the groundwork that has been done, I will certainly see it as a success. So I would say all of our goals are in the met or ongoing criteria. And it's been very meaningful. And what milestones do we hope to achieve in the coming year? Certainly, continuing to build the relationship with HRSA is one of the key items. And second is really looking at the at Medicare Part B and reintroducing the legislation. But there needs to be some work that needs to be done prior to that. So that's something that we have. We have requested AARC to be connected with and support us in the work. But that's where we would see. So I'll look forward to building the relationship with HRSA, identify more loan repayment programs, even introduce a new one, and also Medicare Part B. So it's still work in the process. We'll be ironing it out in the upcoming months. But I think this work, I have a feeling that this work is going to go on for a while.
Great, Jerin. Thank you so much for an overview of what the committee's doing, the task force is doing, and thank you for your volunteerism and your kind words. It's really appreciated. I think now we're going to switch over to talk a little bit more with Jefferson Mixell, who's done really good work on understanding what HRSA does, what HRSA can do for us, and to talk a little bit about the meeting that we had with HRSA. And Jefferson, if you could just introduce yourself, and then I'm just going to go through and interview you in the same way. I have a few questions.
Sure, sounds good. Jefferson Mixell. I am a respiratory therapist and operations manager at Penn State Health Milton Association Medical Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I my pleasure to serve with Jerin as a member of the PSRC. I'm a delegate for Pennsylvania to the House of Delegates.
Great. Thank you so much. And so what's the purpose of HRSA and the meeting that AARC had with HRSA?
Great question. And that was the first question that Jerin and I asked ourselves when we received
What's a HRSA and why?
What is a HRSA? So HRSA, I don't think we've defined this yet, but it's Health Resources and Services Administration. And really big picture, their mission is to just ensure that we have a functioning health workforce or health system in the United States. And so they do a lot of different projects. Their reach is very broad to help ensure that we have we're recruiting healthcare professionals into the field and that they are going to places where they are needed.
And when we met with them, what did we learn about their view of the respiratory therapy workforce?
So their view of the respiratory therapy workforce was actually better than what we thought, because one of the people that we met was a former respiratory technician. That was sort of her first foray into healthcare. So we met with two really high-level administrators. Joan Wise, she's a nurse practitioner now, but she was a respiratory tech when she started. Now she's the deputy director for the division of medicine there. And then we also met with Dr. Candace Chen, and she's the acting associate administrator for the Bureau of Health Workforce. And so that is the part of HRSA that is really involved and are charged with developing and retaining the workforce. So they were excited to see us, which was great. We thought we'd have to maybe explain why we were there. And they understood what respiratory therapists had gone through COVID, certainly, and that we mirror many other health professions' workforce concerns with recruiting enough people into the field to meet the open positions that we have available in hospitals and everywhere else in respiratory therapist practice.
So could you tell us a little bit about what we think as AARC HRSA could do for the profession and what some of the best fits are?
Mm-hmm. So we know that what's our problem that we're trying to solve here? We need more respiratory therapists. And what does HRSA do? Well, they help recruit. They can help with recruitment into healthcare professions. There are current programs, big programs that HRSA manages that respiratory therapists may be able to benefit from now. There are some that they don't benefit from, and there are potentially some in the future that could be created that respiratory therapists could benefit from. So some of the big marquee programs that HRSA manages are something called the National Health Service Corps and the Nurse Corps Loan Repayment Program. So those are programs where specific healthcare providers that commit to work in specific situations, think like rural health areas, are in return for the commitment to work in those places, they receive money back to pay for their education. HRSA is bound by, if it says the Nurse Corps is only for registered nurses, for example, they can't make that work for us. But there are other programs that are more interprofessional that respiratory therapists can be part of now. One that we know respiratory therapists have taken advantage of is something called the Faculty Loan Repayment Program. And so this is a specific program where HRSA will reimburse tuition for a respiratory therapist that meets disadvantaged criteria, that then goes back and teaches. They become faculty. So they teach at a respiratory therapy program. And we've actually talked to some respiratory therapists that have been part of that or have tried to apply for that. And this is actually one of the points that we, I think, agreed with HRSA that we had some work that we could do around this because of sort of what the requirements were of the contract from the teaching facility that the faculty comes from. So that was a great dialogue back and forth of, here's a program that we have, and maybe there's something that we can change. And then anything more that would be a new program, that would be something that we would have to go on our lobby day and talk to our congresspeople about. They are allocated funds appropriated funds for these certain programs, and they have to use them for those programs. And if we wanted to create a new one, then that would be something that we would have to do through legislation.
So Jefferson, you have or I think the task force is making some recommendations or maybe making some recommendations about communications tools to be able to educate our membership about these opportunities. And also as we move forward to try to identify new opportunities, how we talk about this to our leadership in the political arena who would have to lobby for these kinds of initiatives to take place.
Right. It's been a lot of work with this task force to do this research to understand what this elephant in the dark is of HRSA and how it might actually help respiratory therapists. And like Jerin said, we've had a lot of people that have been very helpful. We met with just one today, David Burnett, who's down at Kansas University, and he is in two other programs where he has been a recipient of two other grants that were administered by HRSA that we weren't aware of before. So as we continue to collect this information, I think it's only valuable if we can share that out with the community that could benefit from it.
Yeah, that's terrific because, a lot of times people build expertise and then they keep it internally. And I think figuring out how to communicate that to our membership is a terrific role that the task force is playing. I want to ask you, Jefferson, on a personal note, is there anything that you've found really rewarding? We got a testimonial from Jerin about what it means to be a volunteer. Is there anything that you've found personally rewarding in this work as you talk to our membership?
Yeah, absolutely. The most rewarding, I think I'll echo Jerin's sentiment that everyone that we've reached out to talk about this has been very generous with their time and more than gracious in explaining things to us. Um, the Without that expertise, we don't get to this point today where we can collect this information. The other really rewarding thing is, I think, what we've started to see is we have certain, not silos, but there are different areas that we work in, and like that's sort of just how we think about the world of respiratory therapy. So I work in a big hospital. I'm the manager of a department. Jerin works in education, and our task force is sort of spans the gamut of people that are in all different aspects of care. And one thing we all agree on is that we need more respiratory therapists in the workforce. And so, it might be easy for me as a manager to say, Jerin, make more respiratory therapists. What are you doing? But there are, opportunities to collaborate and share expertise across those silos, I think, is really rewarding because at the end of the day, that's the only way that we'll be able to make an impact on something like this.
Great words of wisdom. And thank you both for your leadership. Thank you for your work on the task force. And thank you for sharing those ideas here today on the podcast. And before I do the final recap, is there anything that I should have asked you that you would like to add in the last minute or two, Jerin or Jefferson?
I will only add, Miriam, that when we send out blasts, not we, but when the AARC sends out blasts to send a letter to your congressperson, that has real impact on these meetings when we meet with people that receive those emails. They do pay attention to that. And if they receive a couple thousand emails on one particular topic, then they will know what we're talking about and they'll have a plan in place. And so it's an important and fairly easy part of advocacy for our profession.
Great.
Certainly, I agree 100%. And I'll, give that plug too there that it takes probably, not even a minute, right, to send that because AARC does all the background work of it's a few clicks, enter your name, your address, and it goes to the right email inbox. So take those few minutes to do that. That'll be amazing. That's what I have.
Well, thank you both again for your leadership, and we'll look forward to hearing more through your communication and through your progress about what your task force is accomplishing in this area because it's just critical, retain and recruit. And I would encourage our listeners to follow up on our updates through the AARC newsroom or any additional upcoming webinars. If you have any questions as a result of listening to this webinar, if you feel compelled to get engaged, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'm Miriam.O'Day at AARC.org. And thank you both so much. It's really a pleasure working with you. You're great volunteers.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.